Inside one of the largest industrial hubs in the Northeast, something in common began to emerge. It's not just warehouses, nor just assembly lines. Next to the new industrial operation, which is advancing at a fast pace, permanent or semi-permanent housing structures have been set up, and they are starting to draw attention. Attention, dormitories, their own routines, restricted movement, and a dynamic that's suggested to some of the local population something bigger than just a simple construction site. The perception quickly got a name, a Chinese city inside Kamasari. While truck drivers move around, machines are installed, and teams work in shifts to make a new industrial plant possible. A silent discomfort is also growing outside the walls. The promise of development has started to coexist with doubts. Who works there? Who lives there? And most importantly, what exactly is being built? Stay with us for the next few minutes and understand how a multi-billion industrial project ended up giving rise to one of the most controversial narratives in the country. The project is located in Kamasari, a municipality in the metropolitan region of Salvador, about 50 kilometers from the capital of Bahia. The area is located in one of the main industrial hubs of the Northeast. Specifically, the complex occupies the area where the old Ford factory used to operate, a structure that for decades supported the local economy and after its closure left a significant industrial void. It is in this same space that the Chinese automotive company BYD is setting up a production hub with about 4.6 square kilometers of total area, with an initial capacity of 150 kilometers, 1,000 vehicles per year, with the potential to reach 600,000 units annually in future phases. However, what makes this project unique is not just its scale, but the context in which it emerges. Replacing a closed operation and carrying high social expectations. So the question arises, are we facing a new phase of industrialization, or a model that still needs to prove its real impact on the local economy? To understand the origin of this venture, it's necessary to consider the impact caused by the closure of Ford's operations in Kamasari. The departure of the automaker had an immediate effect on employment, tax revenue, and the regional economic dynamics, creating an urgent demand for productive replacement. It was into this void that BYD stepped in. The project began to be presented as a strategic response based on three pillars: reindustrialization, integration into the global electric vehicle supply chain, and repositioning Bahia in a sector associated with high technology. The investment, estimated at approximately 5.5 billion Rs, and the projection of up to 20,000 direct and indirect jobs, reinforced the narrative of economic recovery. At the same time, the idea began to circulate on social media that a Chinese city was being created in Bahia with the massive arrival of foreign workers. However, this narrative was amplified by misinformation. The claim that around 10,000 Chinese people would be brought in to fill positions in the project circulated widely. This information was later denied by official data, which showed a predominance of Brazilian workers and a contractual requirement for the majority of the workforce to be local. Even so, the impact of this narrative was significant. This coincided with a concrete factor that completely changed the public perception of the project. And it's precisely at this point that the discussion shifts to another level. In practice, this complex is being built, and for what? The BYD complex in Kamasari operates under an unusual model. Part of the plant has been operating since 2025, while other areas are still under construction within the same industrial perimeter. But there is a second layer to this implementation, a less visible and more sensitive layer. During the adaptation and construction phase, housing areas were set up within the complex itself to accommodate workers directly involved in the construction, mainly the Chinese. In practice, this is a functional and planned infrastructure, spaces for collective adaptation, dining areas, internal logistics, and routine organization, aligned with the pace of the construction and the operational shifts. These structures are organized into concreted cores, with housing modules and common areas sized to accommodate hundreds of workers simultaneously. This model is common in large industrial projects, where the proximity between housing and the construction site allows for greater operational control. However, what is functional from an engineering standpoint is not necessarily neutral from a social perspective. The concentration of these structures within the same perimeter, combined with the presence of foreign workers and the initial lack of clear communication, led part of the local population to interpret this nucleus as something beyond a conventional lodging. The impression was clear. It already functioned as a separate space, a relatively isolated environment, almost like an autonomous city. Meanwhile, the industrial construction continues to progress. At the same time, the old Ford structure is being deeply reconfigured. Warehouses are adapted for new assembly lines, logistical access points are reorganized, and the existing energy infrastructure is recalibrated to support a new production logistics based on electrification and automation. The initial phase of the operation was structured under the semi-knockdown system, in which vehicles arrive partially assembled and go through finalization in Brazil. This model allows for a faster start of operations, but it requires a high level of logistical synchronization, involving the import of components, storage, and integration into the assembly lines. At the same time, new areas are being prepared for more complex industrial processes. Stamping, robotic welding, automotive painting, and battery assembly require strict environmental control, technical isolation, and highly specialized infrastructure. These steps are essential to transform the complex into a complete plant, gradually reducing the dependence on external inputs. From an engineering point of view, the factory layout is undergoing a complete reorganization. Automated systems such as smart conveyors and guided vehicles automatically begin to integrate different sectors of the plant in real time. Each piece of equipment undergoes rigorous calibration processes and validation tests before entering operation. It's also worth highlighting that the project incorporates the creation of an internal industrial ecosystem. Structures inherited from Ford are being allocated to suppliers, allowing partner companies to operate within the same production perimeter. This proximity reduces logistics costs, increases efficiency, and accelerates the production pace, but it also requires constant coordination between different companies. At the same time, the external infrastructure is also being expanded. Road systems and internal routes are being reconfigured to support a higher flow. Loading and unloading areas are expanded, and utility networks such as electricity, industrial water, and telecommunications are reinforced to meet the growing demand. It was in this accelerated environment that the main breaking point emerged, the breaking point of the project. Inspections carried out between 2024 and 2025 identified 471 Chinese workers who were brought in irregularly, of whom 163 were found in conditions classified as analogous to slavery. Exhausting work hours, degrading housing conditions, and restrictions on freedom were reported. This episode was directly linked to the construction fronts, where deadline pressure and the need for specialized labor contributed to the failure of governance. As a result, more than 60 infraction notices were issued and some activities were even temporarily suspended. Subsequently, contracts with the companies involved were terminated and corrective measures were adopted. Even so, the case exposed a significant weakness. The speed of execution of large projects can increase risks when it is not accompanied by useful, robust control mechanisms. Today, the project continues on multiple fronts, but under a new context. It is no longer just an industrial project under construction. It is an operation that is being observed technically, economically, and socially. And it is precisely this combination that redefines what is actually being built in Kamasari. Now, to understand the real scale of this project, it's worth translating these numbers into something more concrete, starting with the size. The BYD complex occupies about 4.6 square kilometers In fact, this means that this structure is larger than entire cities in Brazil. For comparison, it surpasses Águas de São Bento in São Paulo, which has approximately 3.6 square kilometers of total area. It is also larger than Santa Cruz de Minas in Minas Gerais, with about 3.5 square kilometers. In other words, this is a complex that, by itself, occupies more space than entire municipalities. In productive terms, the scale is also impressive. When it is fully operational, the plant can reach up to 600,000 vehicles per year, which means more than 1,600 units produced per day. On the financial side, the investment, estimated at 5.5 billion reais, helps to gauge the scale of the project. With that amount, it would be possible to buy approximately 73,000 popular cars, each costing 75,000 reais. This set of numbers shows that we are not dealing with a conventional factory, but with an industrial structure on a territorial scale. Despite the controversies, the project remains strategic. The expectation is that the complex will reposition Kamasari as a relevant hub in the production of electrified vehicles, attracting suppliers and expanding the regional production chain. This could mean economic recovery, job creation, and the reactivation of an industrial structure that had lost its prominence after Ford's departure. But this progress doesn't happen in a straight line. The case involving foreign workers in conditions similar to slavery, exposed weaknesses that go beyond the project itself and affect the public perception of the project. At the same time, part of the local population began to question not only the execution, but also the distribution of the benefits generated. The result is a scenario of expectation mixed with caution, and in many cases irritation among the residents of the region. That's because the project started to concentrate three sensitive factors at the same time: the perception of an isolated core, doubts about who really benefits from the operation, and a concrete episode that exposed serious flaws in working conditions. The so-called Chinese city of Kamasari is not actually a city, but a large-scale industrial complex with strong international influence. Even so, what's at stake goes beyond the physical structure. This project reveals how major developments not only transform the space, but also the economic, social, and institutional relationships around them. Because, in the end, the central question isn't just what is being built, it's how and for whom it is being built. And it's this answer that will determine whether Kamasari is entering a new phase of development or just another cycle of industrial dependence. Thank you for watching this video up to this point. And what do you think about all of this? Here we have information related to what the media gives us, and I'm sharing it with you with great curiosity. You, caution with information and impartiality. But I would like to know from you what you think they are doing in Kamasari, in Bahia, both in terms of infrastructure and in terms of the economy. Leave your opinion in the comments. I will make a point of reading all of them. I'll stop here for now. A big hug and see you in the next video.